Welcome back to the I Don't Want a Divorce podcast. Starring, with Dr. David E. Clarke. That's me. I'm glad you're here. Now, my current podcast series is based on my latest book, I Didn't Want a Divorce. Now what? If you're divorced or in a marital crisis of any kind, I've got a specific plan of action for you. That's what I do. Go to my website, davideclarkephd.com. That's Clarke with an E, davideclarkephd.com for all my resources on marital crisis. Books, videos, focus on the family interviews, this podcast, of course, social media, and my phone advice service. More and more, I'm talking to spouses across the country who are in a marital crisis. For 45 minutes, it's all set up basically through email. You can call the office, but we do it through email. All this is on the website. We can set it up, pay with a credit card before, because I don't know you yet, and then we have 45 minutes. I get the background. I'll give you a specific plan of action coming out of that session that will empower you and give you the best chance to save your marriage. If you're divorced and you're struggling, of course, we can talk about that as well. Now, today's topic, how to get righteously angry. In the previous podcast, I talked about how important righteous anger is in the whole forgiveness process. If you don't get righteously angry, you're jammed up emotionally, you're not going anywhere else, and you'll stay in grief and sadness and, frankly, bitterness. So, but how do you do it? Well, Dr. Clarke's going to help you with that. Time alone doesn't heal you. In fact, your situation will get worse over time if you don't heal in a healthy way. Each step in my divorce recovery process has to be done in the right order and in the right way. That's why I wrote the book, I Didn't Want a Divorce the Way I Did. Everything happens in steps. Now, it doesn't matter if your divorce was weeks, months, or even years ago. If you skip the righteous anger step or didn't do it properly, which is often the case in the Christian world, because the pastor and Christian counselor don't want you to be angry, you have to go back and do it right. I don't care if it's 25 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. You have to go back and do it right. Now, 3 things you need to know. First, when I use the word anger in this podcast, I'm talking about righteous anger. It's not the anger of the world that is sinful, frankly. This is righteous anger. Second, you are not cleaning your anger out of your emotional system in this phase. You are connecting to your anger, holding on to it, and using it to get your life on track. That's a message you're not going to hear in many Christian circles because they don't get it. I've been a Christian psychologist for 35 years. I should get it. I do get it. You're going to hold on to that anger and use it to power through my divorce recovery process. Now, in the next phase, this is from chaos to order. In the next healing phase, which is here's how healing works, I'll help you get rid of your anger and forgive. You're going to clean the anger out and you're going to completely forgive your ex and all others in your life who's wounded you. But that doesn't happen now. That happens down the road. Just as David did in many of his Psalms, in fact, most of his Psalms, you are going to stay angry until you have accomplished what needs to be done. That's one of the purposes of righteous anger. That's why God has made us this way. Third, I want you to focus only on your ex-spouse in this anger phase. There are certainly others who wounded you during the marriage and divorce process, but we'll deal with those persons a bit later in the podcast series. Okay, the top 3 insults. This is how we get angry. I want you to list the top 3 things your ex did to you that caused the most pain. There are a ton of them, of course, but let's look at the main 3. Don't use general categories. I want specific events in time. He was a jerk doesn't cover it. How specifically was he a jerk? He was abusive, probably true. Doesn't help. Specific incidents. Let me give you the top 3 insults of one of my divorced clients. Number 1, this is her talking. The night you told me, speaking to Rex, the night you told me you wanted a divorce. She'll never forget that night. Having to hear those words. Awful, traumatic, piano dropping from 100 feet. Her second insult, the morning I discovered your adultery. Talk about never forgetting something. Oh my goodness. She came across some text messages. He's got someone else. Devastating. Number 3, our last couple counseling session. That wasn't with me, it was with somebody else, but it didn't go well. Then it's important to relive each of these insults. I want you to talk through each insult, each specific incident, using as much detail as possible with 2 support team members, God and your recovery coach. We talked about the recovery coach in a previous podcast. If you didn't listen to that, you can go back and listen in terms of building your support team. Now, if you're or seeing a Christian counselor, talk about each insult with this professional also, of course. I want you to pray before each of these angry rants, and they are rants, that God will get you in touch with your anger and help you fully express it. He'll answer those prayers. Many Christians, in fact, many people, even non-Christians, have trouble getting in touch with their anger. If you're a sweet person, if you're a nice person, if you're not typically an angry person, and plus you have the Christian community saying, don't be angry. If you're angry, you're sinning. Okay, it's hard, but God actually wants you to express that anger, so ask Him for His help. The verbal expression of painful events with a supportive listener, whether it's God, recovery coach, or the Christian therapist, will get you in touch with your anger. There's a dynamic that happens as you're talking and they respond. When I have a client tell me an insult, telling me a story about an ex that harmed them or some situation that really made them angry, I'm reflecting, I can't believe you're right. Okay, this is a synergy that develops. I don't just listen in silence. Can you imagine Dave Clarke listening in silence to anyone? I don't do that. I'm interactive. I want you to go full throttle with your anger, and so does God. David didn't hold back. David laid it out in the Psalms. Give full, spontaneous, unrestrained expression of your anger. Go over every detail of the 3 insults because your anger is attached to the details. That's where the anger lives. That's why generalities don't help. And don't be afraid you'll get too angry and lose control. You can't be too angry and you won't lose control. Persons who stuff their anger are the ones that lose control. If you stuff, maybe you've had this happen, I have in my life, stuff, and then you finally blow, that's when you lose control. When you're getting it out as you go along, you'll be fine. Again, follow David's example in his Psalms and vent your heart out with no restrictions. Pump out your raw, visceral rage at your ex. And it is rage, and that's okay. You are Jesus cleaning out the money changers. You are Jesus calling out the Pharisees. That's what you're doing. Show no mercy, no compassion, no understanding or excusing his sinful behavior. Oh, but he had a bad childhood. Who cares? Somebody runs you over with their truck. You're not asking about their childhood when you're crippled in the dumb road. Doesn't make any difference in this phase. No forgiveness offered, not even a little bit, not now. That's where the Christians, the counselors and the pastors mess it up. They want you to forgive right away because they think, mistakenly, that if you forgive right at the start of the process, somehow you won't have to get angry and do all the other nasty work. That's not true. I don't have a job if that's not true, and that's fine. But the fact is that's not the way it works. Forgiveness comes later in the process, and the key word with forgiveness is it's a process. Now, you are ranting in this phase with the insults because you need to rant. Some things, frankly, are worth ranting about. Somebody drops a paperclip on your shoe, who cares? But if someone divorces you and has harmed you in the marriage and gouged you in the divorce process and character assassinated you and turned your kids against you, yeah, and devastated you financially and lied about you to others, yeah, that's worth ranting about. Rejection, emotional abuse, forced into a divorce you didn't want, yeah, I'd rant about that. Now let me give you one partial rant from one of my divorce clients, delivered in my therapy office, which is what you're seeing right now, the blue couch, delivered on my blue couch. Of course, I've heard these I do many phone advice sessions now, phone coaching sessions, and I've heard these over the phone too, and I encourage them. Here's the lady talking, happens to be a lady. I will never forget, she says, I will never forget the night he told me he wanted to divorce me. She's talking to me, of course, about him. I had no idea the bomb was coming. He never talked much in our marriage and hardly ever shared anything personal. He chose that night, and she gives a specific date, September 22nd, 9:30 p.m., like she'll ever forget it, to finally open up. Too bad it was to inform me that he was going to divorce me. He gave me incredibly lame, stupid excuses, yeah, they all do, to end our marriage and break my heart and the hearts of our children. That's because he's stupid. Probably the stupidest man on earth. And I encourage the use of the word stupid when it's correct. In this case, it was. I don't love you anymore, he said. It's better for the children, he said. I want to be happy, he said. Really? This is her talking. That's the best he could do? What an idiot. The fact is, he is an idiot. She's talking again. I was shocked back then. I'm angry now, angrier than I've ever been in my life. He is a sinful, selfish, evil man. I hate his guts. Yeah, doesn't sound too Christian, does it? It is absolutely Christian in this context. Be honest. She ranted for about 20 minutes, and I let her go because she was going over some of the events and really getting into it. That's exactly what she needed. Now, this brief part of her monologue gives you a flavor for what I want you to do, and frankly, I'm convinced God wants you to do. Each time you verbalize your anger to God and your recovery coach, and maybe to your Christian therapist, more details about the event will emerge. That's how the brain works as you get into it. And more of your anger will bubble up. You'll be surprised at what will come out of your mouth. Like, this was a sweet Christian lady calling somebody stupid and an idiot, and I hate your guts. That's not what she usually would do, but you know what? It was the right thing to do. By the time you've ranted about your top 3 insults to God and your recovery coach, your healthy, justified, righteous anger will be at full throttle, and that's exactly what we want. Now, I'm going to cover this next phase kind of briefly, and you have to buy the book to get more of this information. Okay, this is a teaser. This is what's known as a teaser. I can't give you the whole thing. But I also want you to vent to what I call the empty chair. Once you've vented to your 2 support team members, I want you to vent your anger about your 3 insults directly to your ex. Now, not in person. You're not going near him. Not by email, not by phone, or by text. He'll never know what you're doing. I don't want you to ever communicate your anger or any of your wounded feelings to your ex. This would simply cause you more pain, and you've had enough pain from him. But if you shared your anger with your ex, he'd hurt you again, so we're not going there. He'd laugh at you, he'd blame you, he'd contradict you, he'd ignore you. Enough. That's why he's an ex. Enough. What I want you to do is find a private, quiet room with 2 chairs in it. You sit in one chair and you put your ex in the empty chair. Then you blast him with your anger for the 3 insults he inflicted upon you. Psychologically, after about 2 minutes, it's just as if your ex is actually in the chair. God will make the scene real. Now, you can do this empty chair rant alone or in front of your recovery coach or Christian therapist. You can make the decision there. You are going to blow him away. You're going to be angry, and you're going to lay him out. No holds barred. I also want you to record these 3 insults. All right, we've talked about them. You've vented them. You've done that with your recovery coach, God, maybe your Christian therapist. You've done the empty chair. I want you to write them down now. Record them on your device to stay connected to your righteous anger, which this isn't a one-time thing and out. No, you're stoking your righteous anger, and you're going to keep it for a while as you move into the recovery process. Record your insults in your phone or other electronic device, or if you're like me and you like paper in the logging industry, you can jot them down on a 3x5 card. When you sense your anger weakening, and it probably will because it kind of comes and goes a little bit, read over the list, refresh your memory. With your righteous anger energized, you can take effective action to reclaim stability in your life. Now, on my next podcast, we'll start getting your life in shape. Now, I want you to help us grow our audience, if you will, and help more people in marital crisis and those that have been divorced heal by subscribing to this podcast channel and leaving a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. That would really help us have more and more impact. And God is blessing us in that way, and you can help us. So, in the next podcast, we're going to talk about starting to get your life in shape, starting to go from chaos to order and stability in your life. And righteous anger is going to be a key part of that. So, until next time, Dr. David E. Clarke, PhD.com. That's my I'll give my website. Why not? David E. Clarke. Clarke with any David E. Clarke, PhD.com. I will talk to you and see you in the next podcast.